Mr. Holmes, I've had my men round up anyone who might have had any reason to murder the pastor. Turns out they're all occasional attendees to this local church.
Inspector, what was the pastor's name?
Pastor Bob.
I see. Have the bobbies already moved Pastor Body's body?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. But our inspector on the scene took careful notes first.
Excellent, excellent. Data, data, data. I cannot make bricks without clay. My dear Inspector, was Pastor Body's body bloody?
No, Mr. Holmes, no sign of blood at all.
Well, was Pastor Body's non-bloody body broken before being moved by the bobbies?
No, Mr. Holmes, we did not find any signs of physical attack.
I see. Then why do you suspect foul play rather than natural causes?
Because, Mr. Holmes, it just doesn't add up. Pastor Body was in perfect health. He was a reasonably respected pastor, all right, but his preaching seemed to either change lives or make people mad. Yet on this night, absolutely no one showed up to Wednesday night Bible study.
When did death occur, Inspector?
Pastor Body's non-bloody, broken, non-body... Pastor Body's non-bloody, non-broken body was discovered at 8:30 this evening. Our inspector estimated that the time of death was between 7 and 8:30.
Between 7 and 8:30, I see. Now, let's meet the persons of interest, shall we?
Everyone, this is Mr. Sherlock Holmes. He is going to insist in this investigation, so I ask that you give him your full cooperation. Mr. Holmes, this is Colonel Mustard, Miss White, Mr. Professor Plum, there you go, Miss Peacock, Mr. Green, and Miss Scarlet.
Good evening, everyone. I wish we were meeting in other circumstances. My condolences on the loss of your pastor. And my partner should be around here somewhere. Oh, it's you.
I'm in disguise. The mic is not possible.
Yellow mic.
Yo.
Try again.
The mustard. Yo! It's on. It's the mustard. Just a joke. I'm in disguise, okay? No one will ever guess that I'm a dog, but I'm dressed like a cowboy. See it? Get it? What dog? There's no dogs around here. Only cowboys.
I see, my dear cowboy.
That's right.
Inspector, might I question each of your guests?
Why, yes, Mr. Holmes. Please, feel free.
All right. Thank you, Inspector. Colonel Mustard, might I speak to you, please?
Yes, of course.
You're obviously retired from Her Majesty's Royal Marines. Nice to meet you, sir.
How did you know I was retired from the Royal Marines as opposed to Her Majesty's Army, Navy, or the Royal Air Corps?
Merely by observation, Colonel. The title Colonel is not applicable to the Royal Navy. As for the Royal Air Force, we are still almost a decade away from flying aeroplanes and decades away from the formation of the Royal Air Force. That leaves only the Army and Marines, and I simply observed the tattoo on your arm,
Yes.
which says Royal Marines, to make the final deduction. And finally, the non-regulation haircut indicated that you have retired from the service some years ago, yet you're still proud of your loyal service.
Very good, Mr. Holmes. Remarkable. Now, what questions do you have for me?
I would like to know exactly where you are tonight, between the hours of 7 and 8:30 p.m.
I guess I should have been here, but I was at the ballpark watching the ball game. Dollar hot dog match, you know, man. It was the Rangers versus the Angels, and by gosh, the Rangers won.
I see. So you're saying that you had no way of being here, both here and at the ballpark at the same time, so we may rule you out as a suspect. So if you don't mind me asking, Colonel, why do you occasionally miss coming to church?
The main reason is just out of my comfort zone. The only reason I really started coming here is because of my wife. It's just not manly to be a place to be. There's too much handshaking, hugging, and generally being too touchy-feely. Religion should be about discipline. Discipline, man! Not about relationship.
My dear fellow, I think you may have missed the entire message of the church and the Bible.
Oh?
Why, God is so much more interested in having a relationship with you than in following some set of rules. Rules aren't bad, but relationships of love with God and others are much more important. Why, you're missing out on some of the best parts of life.
You sound like a bloody pastor with all this love stuff. Real men don't talk about love.
My dear Colonel, I would say that it's just the opposite. Without love, a man is only a hollow shell, trying to look like a man.
But what about all that talk about money? If those people at church were really religious, they wouldn't be talking so much about money.
Colonel, is it such a strange thing for someone to want to teach people he loves how to get out of the financial mess they're in?
Well, I guess not.
I think that's all for the questions I have for now, sir. You may return to your seat.
Very well.
All right, I've got it. Get ready. I've got this. All right, get ready. Colonel Mustard killed Pastor Body in the dining room with a candlestick. Yep, you didn't see that coming.
I'll have you know, sir, I was stationed in Singapore. One of our favorite delicacies was dog cooked in bacon.
Bacon? I love bacon. That's the best. Man, so good. Oh, wait. You said dog, didn't you?
I believe you did, Watson.
I'll just be going.
I do not believe that's it, Dr. Watson. Let's try our next guest. Mrs. White, would you come up here, please?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. How may I help you?
Nice to meet you. Ah, Mrs. White, a hardworking, honest maid who gives her employees her money's worth in service.
How did you know I was a maid? And how do you know I actually do my work?
Oh, it's quite easy to tell. Your dress is made from an older maid's uniform, hence your profession. And by the feel of your hands and the appearance of your knees, I observe that you are a hard worker who scrubs the floors on your knees rather than mop standing up.
You're correct, sir.
Now, Mrs. White, where were you this evening between the hours of 7 and 8:30 p.m.?
I was at home resting after a long day at work. I was simply too tired to get up and go to church.
But my dear lady, are you not aware that times of refreshing come in the presence of the Lord? If you had come to church, made the effort to get into God's presence, the reward of restoring your body would have been much greater than lying around the house.
That's what Pastor Boddy often said also. But I still don't believe it. He kept trying to tell me all sorts of things he said were in the Bible, but they were all just way over my head. So I basically quit listening. I don't want to think when I come to church. I just want to feel good.
I see.
And on top of that, I just don't like the music. I've told our worship leader songs that he should pick, but he never picks them. Why should I come if they're not going to play the music I like?
I see. Thank you, my dear. You may return to the others.
Ho, ho, ho. I got it. Mrs. White killed Pastor Body in the conservatory with the knife. She's vicious like that.
My dear Watson. My dear Watson, there were no knife wounds.
I'm on a lead pipe.
I don't believe it was a lead pipe either. It appears that Mrs. White was resting at home rather than resting in God's presence.
Yeesh. Did she at least have any bacon while she was playing hooky from church?
I don't know, Doctor. I didn't ask her.
Did, because that's his bacon. Hey, lady.
Yes?
Lady, did you have any bacon when you were resting at home?
I don't believe I did.
So what that was, who heard of resting without eating bacon? I don't know what that is. Not resting.
Well, let's move on to our next guest, shall we? Professor Plum, would you please come here? I see that you are on the staff at Cambridge University, and I would assume that you teach physics.
Why, yes. How did you know?
Oh, elementary. The pin on your lapel gives away that you're on the staff at Cambridge, while the ring on your finger says that you majored in physics. Hence, it was merely simple deduction.
I see what you did there. Very clever, Mr. Holmes.
Merely observation and deduction. I wonder if you might inform us where you were this evening between the hours of 7 and 8:30 p.m.
Why, I was working late on an experiment I've been conducting at work. You see, I've been trying to deduce whether life originated in this universe or in an alternate universe and was somehow transferred here by aliens.
My dear Professor, have you considered that God created life as the Bible explains?
Come now, Mr. Holmes. I expected that from Pastor Boddy when he would tell me that, but you are a learned man. You don't really believe that stuff in the Bible, do you? Why, it's just a bunch of made-up fairy tales. No educated person would ever believe something that takes that much faith and the unseen to accept.
But my dear Professor, you have never seen, nor will you, by definition, ever be able to prove an alternate universe. It seems you have much more faith in your unseen, unproven science than I do in my proven God. So if you don't mind me asking, Why do you occasionally miss coming to church?
First off, I've already informed you that I don't really believe in that stuff. But even though I don't believe it, I've read the Bible through and know just as much as that pastor, if not more. So why should I try to learn more?
I see. Is that it?
The other reason is that they are just too weird at that church. They talk about hearing from God, and they raise hands and get excited when they sing. It's preposterous.
Is that all?
I believe that about covers it.
I see. Well, that will be all, Professor. You may return to the others.
No sense.
This is a terrible disguise. No one's a Cowboys fan. Oh, I got it. Oh, I got this. All right, listen.
Okay. Let me know. What do you?
That's Plum, right?
Yes.
Plum.
Yes.
And he was in the study, right? And he had the wrench. And yeah.
Wait!
What?
Professor Plum isn't a mechanic. He's a physician. Wouldn't it make more sense that he bored them to death with math?
Yeah, we know what that ad-lib to. That's cool. All right.
Those are both good guesses, but I venture to say that the good professor could bring forward witnesses who saw him at work instead of at church. You know, it's fascinating. The professor here seems to always be learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Mrs. Peacock, might I ask you to come here, please?
Why, yes, Mr. Holmes.
My dear Mrs. Peacock, might I inquire, if it's not too painful, were you recently divorced, or did your husband pass away?
Well, he passed away, Mr. Holmes, but how on earth did you know to ask?
Oh, quite simple. I noticed from the coloration and indentation on your left ring finger that you wore a wedding band until the last few months. Or you're trying to sneak it off right now because you forgot before the scene.
Well, extraordinary, Mr. Holmes. In fact, I've had 4 husbands, all of which have died.
And I would venture to guess that the money you inherited from these men is almost entirely gone. Hence, you're actively looking for a husband number 5.
But how would you know something like that?
Simply by observation, my dear lady. Your clothes are immaculate and somewhat provocative, as if to attract the attention of a prospective future mate. Yet your shoes indicate that you now have a job cleaning stalls in a barn, and you do not have the money to replace the quality shoes which you have now ruined.
Sadly, you are correct on all accounts, Mr. Holmes.
I'm not being critical, my dear lady. All of us go through hard times, and each of us must choose how we proceed through those times. Might I ask where you were this evening between the hours of 7 and 8:30 p.m.?
Why, certainly. I was at home listening to my phonograph.
Listening to your phonograph?
Why, yes, Mr. Holmes. I would have been watching the telly, but it hasn't been invented yet.
Ah, I see. The telly, that's the television, okay? All right. I see. So if I might ask such a tender question, why do you occasionally miss coming to church?
Why, that's simple. When I go, I feel so guilty. Not only do I feel guilty when the pastor talks, but I also look around and people are all judging me.
How can you tell that?
By the way they look. They come up and they shake my hand and they introduce themselves and then they go on to the next person like I'm not good enough for them.
Do you ever start a conversation with anyone else?
You know, that's the same thing that Pastor Bodie asked me. Why would I want to talk to them? They're all just a bunch of hypocrites. They all talk about being all righteous, but yet they just go on and talk about everybody else. That's being a hypocrite.
Sadly, you are correct, Mrs. Peacock. But you know, the church isn't full of good people. It's full of forgiven people. The only one who was really good was Jesus.
Why, that's exactly the same thing that Pastor Bodie said.
So does that cover your reasons for occasionally not coming to church?
Well, all except that when I was younger, there was a pastor that really hurt my feelings, and I've just never gotten over it. It still hurts. Pastor Bodie apologized for that pastor, but it doesn't change anything for me.
I see. So the pain and hurt from holding a grudge feels better than the freedom of forgiving that pastor who did you wrong and getting on with your relationship with God.
Did you talk to Pastor Bodie about me?
No, my dear. I never met Pastor Bodie. But we happen to have the same father. You may return now.
Much better disguise. that I really got it this time. Miss Peacock killed Pastor Body in the library with the revolver.
No gunshot wound.
I meant the rope.
I don't believe it was her, Doctor.
I do.
I don't believe we have encountered the murderer yet.
I do.
Or maybe we have.
We have.
Mr. Green, would you please come here, sir?
Why, yes, Mr. Holmes. How may I help assist?
Mr. Green, nice to meet someone with a desire to get ahead in the world. Because I happen to notice that you're rather dressed very well. Dressed to impress, even. Except for, well, you have on the nice coat, but the lack of pants seems to indicate that you've been striving to get ahead, but haven't quite made it yet.
It shows that I'm a businessman, but I'm here to party.
Ah, I see.
I guess that is a fair assessment. So how may I assist you, sir?
All right, so Mr. Green, where were you this evening between the hours of 7 and 8:30 p.m.?
Well, see, it was like this. I was, and then I was at home in bed sleeping.
I see, sleeping. When you could come and enjoy worshiping God and seeing His hand at work in your life and the lives of others?
Okay, let's get a few things straight. First of all, the church services are boring. Nothing ever happens.
Why, Mr. Green, are you taking part in worship or merely observing?
That's the same thing Pastor Body said to me. It's the same old, same old. You come in, we sing several songs, pass the plate, listen to some stories, say amen, and go home. I know how it all goes. In fact, I should be in ministry. I know how to do all the stuff the pastor and leader and worship leaders do.
Ah, but you have become upset because the pastor won't move you into a leadership position until you first show that you are faithful to attend and minister where you are. Not only that, when you've spoken to him regarding financial assistance, he suggested that if you were attending regularly, you would find answers to your everyday financial problems.
You must have talked to Pastor Body. Look, he may have made me mad sometimes, but I didn't kill him.
I promise you I've never met Pastor Body. It's nearly simple to deduce that a person who would prefer sleeping to coming into God's presence would miss out on the answers of life and then blame others for their own problems.
Mr. Holmes, I find your questioning no longer helpful or amusing. Might I return to my seat now?
Of course, Mr. Green. I'm finished with the questions.
I had the murder. I know who it is. I got this. This is for real this time.
Sure this time?
I am positive. All right.
So who is it this time?
I mean, isn't it elementary, my dear Holmes? Mr. Green. Yeah, I know that happened. Killed Pastor Body in the lounge with a candlestick that's tied to a wrench with a rope. It's foolproof.
I don't believe so, Doctor.
I believe so.
Blaming others for our own lack of faithfulness is a condition we all go through, not just murderers. Miss Scarlett, would you please come here? Ah, a beauty who loves being the center of attention.
So, who have you been listening to about me, Mr. Holmes?
Oh, no one. I merely observed your appearance, your dress, and the manner in which you've been occupying the conversation behind me for the past few minutes. I wonder if you might tell us where you were tonight between the hours of 7 and 8:30 p.m.
Well, I was washing my hair, of course.
For an hour and a half?
I have a lot of hair. You have a problem with that?
Oh, no, not at all. But if I might, it sounds like that is merely an excuse. If you don't mind, why do you occasionally not come to church?
I have a number of excellent reasons, Mr. Holmes. First, I usually don't go unless my boyfriend goes. Everybody always just seems to go into cliques, and I just don't fit in. So I usually only go when he goes. And more importantly, I'm too young to get a license to drive a horse and buggy, so I can't come unless someone brings me.
I see. Did you ask your parents to bring you?
Not tonight, but when I have asked them, they seldom say yes.
Have you asked them to go to church with you?
Did Pastor Body talk to you about me? He asked me that same question. No, I haven't asked them to go. Why would I want my parents hanging around at church?
I see. That's enough of the questions then, Miss Scarlett. You may return.
Oh, of course.
So, I don't. I like it like this. It's more sneaky. That's it. I got it. Oh. I got it.
You got it?
I got it.
You sure?
Yep, I know the murderer is.
All right. Then who is that, Doctor?
I mean, isn't it obvious? Miss Scarlet killed Pastor Body in the ballroom with the... All right. Revolver.
No gunshot wound.
I meant knife.
No knife wound.
I meant rope.
No rope burns on the neck.
I mean wrench pipe and or candlestick.
No broken skull bones or bruising.
Okay, so I've really got it this time.
Yes.
Pastor Body wasn't murdered at all. He died of natural causes. Yep.
Oh, no, Doctor. The good pastor was indeed murdered, but in a manner much more sinister than we have been considering. In fact, this mystery reminds me of a very old mystery. You see, a long time ago, when the earth was much younger, there were many more animals than what we see today. Some of those animals died out through various means. But there was one particular type of animal that chose their own death because they wouldn't listen to the warnings. Let's see here. I think I need some help here. Let's get situated. I see a guitar over here. And pull up the other lights.
Time ago, when the earth was green, there were more kinds of animals than you'd ever see.
Back up all the way.
They'd run around and play, while the earth was being born. And the loveliest of all was
Back up all the way. That's not the first one. Words. Page up or the up arrow. There we go.
time ago, when the earth was green, there were more kinds of animals than you'd ever see. They'd run around and play, while the earth was being born, but the loveliest of all was the unicorn.
Sing along!
The green alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-back camels and some chimpanzees, some cats and rats and elephants, but sure as you're born, the loveliest of all was the unicorn. The Lord sees some sin, and it gave him pain. He says, stand back, I'm gonna make it rain. He says, hey brother Noah, I'll tell you what to do. Build me a float-hand zoo, and bring some of those green alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-back camels and some chimpanzees, some cats and rats and elephants, but sure as you're born, don't you forget my unicorns. Now Noah was there to answer the call. He finished building the ark just as the rain started pouring. He marched in the animals 2 by 2, and he called out as they went through. Hey Lord, I got your green alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-back camels and some chimpanzees, some cats and rats and elephants, but Lord, so forlorn, I just can't see no unicorns. Now Noah looked out through the driving rain. Those unicorns were laughing and playing silly games, running and playing, while the rain was pouring. All them silly unicorns, the green alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-back camels and some chimpanzees. Noah says, close the door, 'cause the rain is pouring, and I just can't wait for all unicorns. The ark rose up and drifted with the tide, and the unicorns looked up from the rocks and they cried, and the waters came down and sort of floated them away. That's why you'll never see a unicorn to this very day.
It's okay, because you might think this is the ending to the song.
It's not?
Then I'd have to tell your friends that in fact you'd be wrong.
Really?
You see, unicorns are magical, so when the rain started pouring,
They grew themselves some wings and they took Todd's sword. There were green alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-back camels and some chimpanzees. But if you're looking for the unicorn, don't be so forlorn. Second star to the right and straight on until morn.
You see, the unicorns missed out because they chose to ignore the warnings. And because of that, they missed the boat. Quite literally. And now for the solution to our mystery. The matter is to be announced after this short television break.